Best of R / Tales from Tech Support episode 51. I did work in tech support for a summer internship and I also received a bit of experience in high school. However, I am still the tech support for some of my less savvy roommates and family. RM, roommate. The story begins with me taking my laptop apart to install a new SSD, when my roommate walked in. We talk for a bit, and he notices what I'm doing, and proceeds to tell me that his laptop is broken. I ask what happened and he tells me this. RM, my laptop is broken. It won't turn on anymore. Me, did you install something, or did you do anything to it? RM, I don't think so. Me, okay, can you try turning it on for me? I wanted to see if it would post or how far it could get into starting Windows. RM, starting his laptop. Well, my sound wasn't working, so I decided to do a system restore. It was taking a while, so I ended up shutting it off. Now it won't turn on. Me, you shut down during a system restore? RM, realizing he probably shouldn't have done that. Well, I don't know, maybe? Computer gets through posting and starts going into disk repair. RM, can I skip this? Me, no, this should fix it. RM, ugh, this is going to take forever. ETA 10 hours. Me, don't shut it off. If this doesn't fix it, I can probably just reinstall Windows on your computer and it should work fine. RM, fine. But I already ordered another laptop, and it already shipped. Me, what? You can still return it, right? RM, I guess, but that's difficult. Are you sure you can fix this? Me, pretty sure. Just let it run. About an hour later he calls me over to his desk. His computer has finished repairing the disk, and is now guiding him through the setup process of Windows. RM, so I've gotten here before, but now what do? I end up walking him through the Windows setup. It looks like his restore ended up working, just the only point he had saved was the factory default settings of the manufacturer. After listening to Cortana jabbering about the installation process for about 10 minutes, he finally came to the realization that his sound was now working. He was a bit bummed that he lost his files, but for the most part grateful that he didn't have to spend the money on a new computer. TL. Doctor, roommate's first instinct to fix a sound issue is to do a full system restore. He then shut down his laptop while restoring, and couldn't get his computer to start correctly after. He proceeded to buy a new laptop instead of letting disk repair fix the computer on its own. I fixed it by telling him to be patient. Thank you. Next. I had a phone call once from a client. He had moved his XC host to a new location. When he powered it on, it did not boot up. The host received power, but other than that nothing happened. Client, it was working in the old location, but when I plugged it in here, it had stopped working. Me, what do you mean it had stopped working? Client, well, when I put it in the car, it was working fine. Now it's $$ked. Me, what do you mean it was working when you put it in the car? Client, well, the UPS gives 30 minutes life. It's a 10-minute drive from the old office to here. So I left it unplugged the UPS and drove it down here. I was driving carefully. Me, yeah, your hard disks are %ked. It turns out the client had been driving with the server plugged into the UPS. He had spinning disk HDDs, so with the bumps they had scratched and been corrupted. Thank you. Next. About 6/7 years ago I worked for an Irish telecoms provider as in-store consumer tech support. Think Apple Genius but across all mobile OSs. I'm in the shop one Saturday afternoon and this quite irate gentleman comes into the store and starts screaming at the two girls working retail. We had breached his privacy, destroyed his marriage, and he was going to sue everyone involved individually as well as the company. Guy was being quite intimidating and loud, so I came out from my cave and took over the interaction. After listening to him scream a little more about us costing him his marriage, I get him to explain what his actual problem was, and why he believed our company was at fault. Story goes like this. Guy's a big Angry Birds gamer and unfortunately his handset had died. He was bored and wanted to play, so he took his wife's phone, same model, and now she has his text messages with his side piece and has thrown him out of the house. He thinks we have somehow mixed up his SIM with his wife's and now she is getting all his SMS and messages. I explained that's not how SIMs work and our network didn't allow for two SIMs to be active to same number. He again flips out and says after he finishes here he is heading to our head office to see us all fired. To try and figure out what's been going on, I ask if I can have a look at his handset, honestly expecting an Android with root and some kind of spyware. Anyway, he pulls out a Nokia 610 on Windows OS and the penny drops for me. I ask him when he used his wife's phone, did he use her Windows login or his? He said his, of course. He wanted to be sure he tracked his Angry Birds progress and she didn't have it installed. So I asked him if he read the pop-ups before he clicked accept. Angry guy says, who reads those? All I wanted was a quick game of Angry Birds. I then explained to him that on Windows OS, when you signed into an account, that all messages were shared and replicated across all devices. That as such, when he signed into his wife's phone and didn't sign out, that he allowed his messages to be seen by her and it wasn't a network or a technical issue. He flips out again and said if he knew that playing Angry Birds was going to get him this far in the crapper, that he would never have clicked past the OK. He really didn't appreciate it when I told him that on the bright side, now he had at least 2 Angry Birds to worry about, wife and GF, as I walked him out of the store. Thank you. Next. I work in IT for education. This story is from the last district I worked at. I've waited a while to tell it, and I'm not sure that teacher even teaches there anymore, so here I go to tell the world about it. I was working as a lead technician / junior systems admin. I managed the day-to-day activities of our campus technicians and acted as the next level of support if they needed some extra help. This story comes from a strange phone call to our help desk. The help desk technician walked over to my desk with his headset on and muted. Hey, I've got teacher on the line. She's having problems with the NAS for their class. This teacher was one of our frequent callers. She taught a class that had a small iMac lab and she was not even slightly technically inclined. Her department had purchased a small Buffalo NAS that her students would store their projects on. What's the problem with the NAS? She says that students are changing the names of files to crazy things like I want die. Okay, what does she want us to do? She wants us to remove all student access from the NAS. Have you explained to her that if we do that, her students will not be able to edit their projects? Yes, I have. Okay, just double check for me. He unmutes the headset, relays the information and confirms that she wants us to remove all student access to the NAS. So I do. Pop over to the user group permissions and remove the students group. Not 5 minutes later, help desk walks back over with a confused look on his face. She's back on the line. She wants to know why her students can't edit their projects. I'm dumbfounded. She's given us a lot of headaches in the past, but we can usually work through it. This seemed particularly strange. So I instructed him to forward the call to my desk. Yes, teacher, this is Ross madness. As our help desk explained, when we removed all student access, like you requested, that means students can't access any information stored on that NAS. Yes, I understand that, but why can't they access their projects? Because you told us to remove their access. Well, they need to do their projects. Okay, then I'll restore their access. No, don't do that. Then they'll start changing things again. What would you like me to do then? Pick out specific folders to give them access to? I can make a new folder called projects and they get access to that. No, that won't work. Just give first period access. Mom, we don't have any way to see what students are in your classes. I would need a list of student names and IDs. Okay. Also, add third period. Mom, again, I don't have access to your class rosters. Please send me an email with the complete list of student names and IDs that you need to have access. Okay. She hangs up and there is no email. 2 weeks later, help desk walks over to my desk with teacher on hold. Teacher wants to know why her students can't access the projects on their NAS. She says it's been done all week and she wants to know why. I sigh heavily, down half of my rockstar, and tell him to transfer the call to my desk. Mrs. Teacher, good afternoon. How can I help you? Why can't my students access their projects on the network? Because you told me to remove their access 2 weeks ago. I did? Yes, you did. Oh, right. Something about names or something. Anyway, can you give first period access? Teacher, like I told you before, I don't have access to your class roster. I need you to send me an email with all of the student names and IDs that need access. Okay. Hey, while you're at it, can you add second period? Probably third and fourth periods too. I mute the phone, smack the receiver against my head a few times and unmute. Mom, I cannot do that. I don't have access to your class roster. I need you to send me a complete list of all student names and IDs that need access. Okay, I'll do that. She hangs up and I die slightly inside. 3 hours later I receive an email from her that reads exactly as follows. Please grant first, second, third and fourth period access to the projects on the network drive. I go to the NAS permissions, add the entire student group unchanged, so now it's exactly the same as 2 weeks earlier and hit save. I didn't hear from her about this again. Thank you. Next. Got a call from a store who had just sold a brand new iPhone to the customer but he could not sign into his account to set up the iPhone. They prefaced the call by saying you need to fix this, make it happen. Great. With two-factor authentication accounts, I have no control and no button to press to let them back into their account. I take a deep breath and ask to speak with the customer. After a few minutes of ranting and belittling the staff in the store, the guy finally explained the issue. When trying to sign into his Apple ID to restore his iCloud backup, a verification code is being sent to an old phone number he no longer has. He wants us to change that number for him immediately. Problem: we have no way to do that, so I run him through his options. If he has another device signed in, change it in settings. Replace the SIM card with the same number or start account recovery, but that can be a long wait. After several minutes of swearing, he finally tells me his situation. The guy still has his old iPhone and iPad at home that receive verification codes. Great. Let's go home, change the number and set the iPhone up. He then tells me he has a smart door lock that uses an app on his iPhone to unlock his door to get inside. The app is in the iCloud backup and he can't get into his house without it. I ask him if he has a physical key for the lock. No. Is there another door you can try to get in? No. He begins to lose his temper as he realizes I can't change that phone number and he can't get past the smart door lock. After some more swearing he hangs up. I have no idea if he was able to get back into his house. Thank you. Next. This happened about a year ago. We had a new user complain that they couldn't log into their machine. We thought the person had forgotten her password, so we did this a few times, made sure her account was unlocked in AD. They still couldn't log in. Unfortunately, this person was working at a different work campus on the other side of the country, so we couldn't walk over and see what the user was doing. Finally, A said she couldn't type in her username, if you hadn't gathered, dealing with a Windows environment. So we asked her to do press CRTL Alt Del. So she did. In sequence. As in, CRTL then Alt then Del. And she pushed the keys at the same time. She was then able to log in. I don't even know how this can happen, but at least my co-workers and myself got a laugh out of it. Thank you. Next. So this is my dad's story of, most likely, his dumbest customer and easiest $100 fix ever. He used to run his own tech support business that did home and office calls. One day this guy calls up saying that his computer monitor doesn't work and that he wants someone to come out and fix it. My dad says that's fine, but it will be about $100 to send someone out there to fix whatever is wrong. The guy says that's fine and my dad sends one of his technicians. About 20 minutes later my dad gets a call from his technician. TS in a hushed tone. So I got here and it looks like the monitor is just not plugged in. Dad, well, plug it in and charge the guy $100. My dad gets a call a few minutes later with this guy screaming into the phone that the fix was so simple and he shouldn't have to pay. My dad politely reminded him that the deal was that if he sent a technician out it would cost $100 and that's what is owed. He didn't tell me much else, other than it took some doing, but he eventually got the $100.